What you're looking at on the screen right now is the original box art for SPike McFang. No, I'm not kidding, that is actually the original box art for SPike McFang. And just looking at that box, you can probably see why kids ran by it in droves at their local video store. But unfortunately for them, they really missed out on a really fun Zelda-like adventure game that never took itself too seriously. It was a fun, lighthearted adventure that really stood out from the more serious fare like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy, even if it is completely insane for the most part. Essentially, what you get when you start up SPike McFang is your typical top-down action RPG that Zelda had made famous for years. You control Spike himself in the game, using your cape and super rad top hat to dispose of enemies. Your cape acts as your standard attack, attacking enemies close to you with a 360-degree swipe. Your top hat is your long-range weapon and can be thrown at enemies across the screen. Beyond that, you get some magic items here and there to use, and you can power up Spike's hat throughout the game, but that's really about it. Overall, it's a fairly simple romp that you could easily call baby's first Zelda if you're a cynical bastard like I am. Sure, it's fun enough on its own, but probably not fun enough to keep your attention throughout the entire game. So what does make old Spike here stand out enough to get anything written about it beyond meh? Well, it's not until you get into the actual storyline and characters that you realize you're dealing with something that may be worth more than a 10-second glance at your local video store. First, let's start with Spike himself. Not only is he the quintessential early 90s tood-filled character, but he's also the heir to Dracula. Yes, the Dracula. Only unlike Dracula, this guy's about as creepy as a cute chibi anime kid with a giant top hat and a cape can be. Still though, he's a fairly charming main character throughout the entire game, and when you first start up the game, you're rolling around in your super cool Dracula car, when you stumble across a young girl that needs your help. It seems her kingdom, and by extension your castle, has been taken over by an evil girl dressed as a cat that throws very real cats at you as weapons. Your task is to infiltrate the castle, kill a ton of monsters, and then defeat her by throwing your top hat at her while avoiding the cats that she throws at you. And this is only the introductory level. From here you go on to learn that you need to defeat an evil zombie general that's taking over your kingdom, and of course only you and your friend can stop him. If you can't tell by now, the story and characters in SPike McFang are all pretty humorous and charming, and probably the biggest thing that keeps the game from ever getting too dull. It's always fun to see what situations each new area brings, and how Spike and his friends react to it. It also helps that the game got one hell of a translation from its original Japanese version, which was something of a rarity back in the Super NES days unless your game was called Final Fantasy. SPike McFang could have easily just been a throwaway game, tossed onto shelves for a quick buck. But it actually seems to have gotten a good bit of attention devoted to it by its developers, and I can always appreciate that, no matter what game it is. And besides the insanity of it all, SPike McFang's actually totally fun to play. The controls allow you to get around easily enough, and the game moves along at a brisk pace. After the first hour or so, you even get an AI character that fights alongside you, which can also be picked up at any time by a second player. And thanks to the faster movement and action, SPike McFang really shines as a co-op game. It also helps that you can occasionally ask your real-life friend if you're really seeing the mind-bending Japanese insanity on screen, or if you're suddenly just succumbing to a flash fever. Obviously, I still recommend the game to anyone that's curious enough to ask about it, not only for the super weirdness, but also for the fun, lighthearted gameplay that SPike McFang has in spades. And Spike himself is just such a cool little character in a game filled to the brim with cool stuff. So yeah, I totally think you should check out SPike McFang if you get the chance. It was criminally overlooked for obvious reasons, but you've still got time to correct that. And even if you don't, it doesn't change the fact that Spike had himself an awesome little game here. Dracula would have been really proud.